had two clients recently ask me almost the exact same thing. One of them said, if I need to give up coffee to get pregnant, I'll do it. Just tell me what to do. And I paused for a second because that question is never really just about coffee. It's about wanting clarity, fast, simple, and clean. Just tell me the rule so I can follow it. But your body doesn't really work in rules like that. The other client had just been told by her doctor that coffee is basically a drug and it could be affecting her cycle. And now she was second guessing everything she was doing. So in today's episode, to slow this whole conversation down and look at what coffee might actually be showing you about your hormones, your stress, and your fertility beyond the yes or no answer. Because it is usually not that simple. Do you long to get pregnant and trust your body again? Do you feel exhausted by the month after month cycle of hope and disappointment? Do you carry that creeping sense of failure? The fear that your body just isn't working the way that it should? If so, I'm so glad that you're here, my friend. Hi, I'm Mariana, a wife, mom, and a fertility care practitioner. After years of confusion and heartache, I learned how to understand my cycle with clarity and move towards pregnancy naturally by following a real system instead of guessing. This is Fertile Window Lab. If you're ready for real clarity about your cycle, a simple method that works, and less pressure from predictions, alarms, and fertility gymnastics, sit down the sticks, pop in your earbuds, and let's make sense of your fertility together. When I was younger, I didn't even drink coffee. I grew up in a small town in Mexico where the weather was hot and humid almost all year long. So hot drinks weren't really part of our culture the way they are now. Coffee definitely wasn't the trendy personality trait it has become today. I actually started drinking coffee around the age 25. When I worked at a deli during the morning shift, coffee and water were free for the employees. But everything else cost money, even with the discount. And those early mornings were long. At first, I honestly didn't even like the taste. I had to figure out the exact amount of cream and sugar to make it drinkable. Little by little, coffee became attached to survival. It kept me warm during the cold mornings. It gave me energy when I was tired. It helped me push through long shifts. And before I realized, I wasn't just drinking coffee because I liked it. I was drinking coffee because I felt like I needed it. Then life moved on, but the habit is coffee became connected to everything. Morning routines, friendships, desserts, pastries, bagels, conversation, motherhood exhaustion, and honestly, emotional comfort too. When the sleep was bad, coffee helped me to function. When I delayed meals, coffee helped suppress hunger. When I needed a little reward, coffee was there too. Even now, kids sometimes ask for coffee and I tell them, no, baby, you don't want coffee. You want a milkshake. Because honestly, a lot of modern coffee drinks are basically a dessert with caffeine attached. A few years ago, I decided to give up coffee for Lent for 40 days. On day 3, I was seriously questioning my spiritual maturity. The headaches were intense, I was irritable, and everything annoyed me. At that point, I literally thought, maybe God prefers I drink coffee and be nice. And that moment made me realize something important. I wasn't simply enjoying coffee anymore. My body had become dependent on caffeine. Then another experience confirmed it even more. While breastfeeding one of my babies, a holistic pediatric doctor advised me to slow decrease caffeine instead of stopping abruptly. He told me, if you drink 12 ounces, reduce by 2 ounces every few days. So I did. And once I got to 4 ounces, the headaches came back full force. And I remember thinking, well, if I'm going to drink 4 ounces, I might as well drink 8. Girl math, I know. Over the years, especially working in women's health and fertility, I started paying closer attention to caffeine culture as a whole, not just coffee. Energy drinks, pre-workouts, matcha, sodas, triple shot ice drinks, and the constant need for stimulation. I started noticing young women in their early 20s walking into the gym at 6 a.m. with a giant energy drink like it was breakfast. And I remember thinking, since when does a healthy 20-year-old woman need that level of stimulation just to start the day? That question stayed with me because eventually this stops being about coffee and becomes about stress, sleep, blood sugar, nervous system load, hormones, and the pace modern women are trying to survive. So when women ask me, should I stop drinking coffee if I want to get pregnant? My answer is usually not what they expect because the goal is not fear, the goal is clarity. And today we're going to talk about it. Let me say something that might surprise you. For most women, coffee is not the actual problem. The bigger issue is the entire environment. The bigger issue is the entire environment around it. Because when we zoom into a typical morning, there's a lot happening at once. You wake up already tired. You didn't sleep enough. You're rushing out of the door. Breakfast gets skipped or replaced with coffee. The coffee is often in a disposable cup that might be lined with plastic, depending on packaging. Then we add sweeteners, flavor syrups, creamers, oat milk, or processed add-ins, and often a pastry or a queen refined snack on top. All while your body is still waking up and cortisol is natural higher in the morning. So now, in one stop, we got caffeine stimulation, blood sugar spikes, stress hormones, processed foods, possible packing exposure depending on the materials, hello microplastics, dehydration, and very little. This is a very different conversation than that is a very different conversation than is one cup of coffee okay? And this matters because many women that are trying to conceive are already operating from depletion. Low sleep, high stress, blood sugar instability, nutrient gaps, inflammation, and nervous system overload. Coffee then becomes something that helps you override exhaustion instead of addressing why exhaustion is there. And this is where the nuance is important because caffeine isn't inherently the issue. It can simply mask what's already going on. Even black coffee depends on quality and sourcing, and every woman responds differently depending on their physiology. Fertility is not just about removing things. It's about building a body that is supported, stable, and nourished. So instead of asking, do I need to quit coffee? A better question is, how can I support my body so coffee is not doing all the heavy lifting? Simple shifts can include not drinking coffee on an empty stomach, pairing it with protein, hydrating well, reducing excessive sweeteners or processed add-ins, being mindful of timing, and choosing higher quality when possible. Because two women can drink the exact same coffee and have completely different responses depending on their sleep, stress, nutrition, and nervous system state. And now let's get into point B. Coffee can mask exhaustion. One of the things I became really curious about recently was my own energy patterns. For the last months, I've been tracking my sleep more intentionally. I already had a watch that tracked sleep duration, but I wanted to understand recovery and quality more deeply. So I added a ring that tracks oxygen levels and sleep stages. Then, like everyone else, I started getting targeted with apps that predict energy dips through the day. And honestly, it was fascinating. I noticed patterns like it takes me almost 50 minutes to be fully awake in the morning. There's a natural energy dip for me around 1:30 p.m. and then rise again around 4 p.m. And I share this because other women are unknowingly fighting their own biology all day. So when someone says, I need coffee to function, what they often mean is, I'm exhausted. And those are not the same thing. Caffeine stimulates your nervous system and keeps you alert. But if we constantly use caffeine to override exhaustion, poor sleep, stress, overwork, undernourishment, or nervous system overload, the body eventually responds to that pattern because the body will prioritize survival over everything else. And when it perceives ongoing stress, whether it's physical, emotional, metabolic, or sleep related, it can shift resources away from the reproductive function. And this can show up as irregular cycles, ovulation disruption, blood sugar and instability, inflammation, thyroid strain, and this cycle becomes familiar. You're tired, so you drink coffee. You need more coffee later, so you sleep lighter. You sleep lighter, so you wake up tired, and the cycle repeats. Now, this doesn't mean coffee causes infertility, not at all, but it can amplify what's already there. So instead of asking, how do I push through this? A better question is, why is my body so exhausted? And sometimes the answer is not more stimulation. It's rest, nourishment, and it's slowing down enough so your body can regulate again. And this leads to point number 3. Severe PMS, it leads to anxiety, irritability. I want to share something personal because this really helped me to collect the dots in my own body. A few years ago, I had one of those mornings that seemed completely normal. I had my usual coffee, took my kids to tutoring, so I decided to grab a bagel with cream cheese. And while I was out, I decided to try a Vietnamese coffee I overheard someone order. It was around 11 a.m., so I thought, it's just coffee. What's the harm? I drove home, and as I pulled into the driveway, something fell off. My hands were shaking. I felt anxious in a way that didn't match anything that was happening in my life. My heart felt fast. My thoughts felt scattered. I went inside and I tried to settle, but instead, my body escalated. So I went outside to breathe. And instead of calming down, I started to panic. It got so intense that I ended up walking and jogging for almost an hour just to let the effects wear off. My kids kept asking if I was okay. And I was, but my nervous system definitely wasn't. That experience taught me something. Caffeine doesn't just give you energy. It amplifies what's already happening in the nervous system. And for some women, especially those with stress, sleep deprivation, and hormonal sensitivity, that can feel like anxiety. And this is what's important in the context of PMS too. Because PMS symptoms aren't just something to brush off. I used to rely on caffeine to get through headaches, migraines, irritability, and cravings during my cycle. It helped me to function, but it wasn't fixing anything, it was masking. And when progesterone is lower or not well supported, symptoms like anxiety, irritability, headaches, and cravings can feel more intense. So coffee in those moments became more than a drink, especially when I was really fatigued right before my period. It became relief. It became a way of coping. It became survival. But the body is still speaking underneath all. Because when PMS symptoms are consistently and strong, it can be a sign that the hormonal environment needs more support. In the same environment, conception is not just about possibility, it's about stability and readiness. So I stopped looking at coffee as good and bad, and I started looking at it as information. What my body's asking underneath all this: rest, minerals, blood sugar balance, nervous system support, because sometimes what we call PMS is really the body asking for support. Let's bring it all together. Coffee isn't the enemy, but it can highlight what's already happening underneath. And for a lot of women, it slowly becomes part of how they push through the day. Low sleep, stress, cycle symptoms, energy crashes, until everything feels a little harder to interpret. Then it gets confusing because you're going to do all the right things, but your body still feels off. PMS is stronger, your anxiety is to the roof, your energy doesn't feel stable, and you start wondering if it's the coffee or your hormones or both. Most of the time, it's not one thing, it's the pattern underneath it. And honestly, this is what comes up all the time in my client sessions. These exact questions about cycles, symptoms, and fertility, they don't quite make sense on paper. So if you've been feeling like something is off, you can't fully name it, that's usually where we start. You're welcome to apply to a fertility clarity call if you want to help putting those pieces together in a way that actually makes sense to your body. I'll see you next week. P.S. It's Bill Drink Coffee.
I'm my mama's little fertility helper. If this episode has helped you, or if you feel a little more hopeful, leave a review. She'll love it.
Hi, DTC Warrior. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, please leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. It truly helps to get this show into ears of more women who need it. And be sure to sign up for my weekly encouragement, tips, and insights straight to your inbox. I promise to keep it practical, hopeful, and faith-friendly. All right, I'm off to tacos, chocolate, and chart my cycle. I'll meet you back here next week. Bye.